Hello everyone, I'm Rich Lamont. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. So this video I am doing a Durham Ranger. This is actually a pretty good fly for a lot of people to learn on. You get a little bit of floss technique, you get some dubbing techniques in there, and then you've got your whole feather wings and your tippet selection in there as well. So this part of the video I just wanted to kind of do a quick rundown on how I'm going to select the feathers for this particular fly. This hook here is about a 5/0. I'll gauge it just to be sure. Yep, that's about a 5/0. I'm going to do a video on the gauges very soon, so that way you guys will know how the gauges work, and you can make a decision on whether you want to try and find a gauge of your own. Okay, so for this we need 2 pairs of golden pheasant tippets, 1 pair for each side. So I like using golden pheasant necks that look like this when they come from the store. If I can choose them, it's all the better, but sometimes I just don't have that luxury. And sometimes they come a little bit flatter and narrower. These ones I would typically, these longer feathers especially, I would take these out and probably steam them just to kind of open them back up a little bit and give them a little bit more of a look. Otherwise they get kind of flat and squished, and they're not quite great to just pluck right off and use. Same thing with this one. This is a really nice one. This one's kind of closer to what I would use. I could probably pick from here and here, but as you can see up in here, some of these are, again, they're a little bit ruffled from being in the package, and so I would probably take those and wind up steaming them as well. So I prefer to get necks that look like this. They're already splayed out nicely. The feathers don't have hardly any damage to them. It's pretty easy to pick the feathers that you want for your fly. So we need 2 from each side. To start with, I do want it to be a larger feather. It's actually a bit too large. So if you see how it sits on the hook, it's kind of hanging off the back over the bend. For a Durham Ranger, that's about pushing it. I could probably use this, but I think I'm pushing it at that length. I might set this one aside because I just might be able to use this one and just tie in a little bit farther up into the stem up here. So we pick one that's a little bit shorter, so we can get into maybe into here. It's not all that much different. I actually have a box full of tippets because of this. I'm not perfect at selecting them yet, but they get used. So that would be probably the one that I want to pair for my first. Let me see. I think that was too large. So now we find a match for that one. And the match for this side you'll always find over on the opposite side. The closer to the center, if you look towards the center right in here, apologize. If you look towards the center here, you'll start finding your feathers that are pretty even on both sides of the stem, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You can see here. But I like having that little bit of a curve to follow the shape of the hook. Pretty close. I think it would be a good mate for this one. So that's a good pair. I don't know, they might be a little big for the fly, but I think I'm going to use them and try to make them work. Alright, so the next pair needs to be smaller than those. So we could go with this one, which is a little shorter, but let's go just a little smaller still. No, that's too short. A little too small. Okay, I like that one. There you go. I think I can make that work. Okay, so now one for the other side that's about the same. And we can just pair this one up with one. So, this side looks a little bit on the bent side. It's a little bit beat up. You can see its shape is a little bit off. So once I find the length, after this video segment, I'm going to go steam that one. Because I think any one I pull from this side right here is probably going to need a little bit of steaming. We can still get a good idea though if it's going to be a good match. Nope. See right here, there's some broken fibers. So that's a no-go on that one. That's a good looking one. I like it. And then you can pair them up as they're going to be on the fly. Take this other two, get them together so they're sitting how you want, which is nice and even on both sides. The barring lines up good. This is the one for the front side. And then one for the back side. And we can obviously neaten that up a little bit, get them to sit a little tiny bit different once they're tied onto the hook. But they line up nice. We can clean up this edge a little bit. We'll also have toppings going over it, which will kind of help keep this together. And pardon me. Yeah, I think those are going to work out good. Those will look nice. Alright, so that's pretty much it. That's just the selection process I go through for this particular fly. Most others are very similar, especially if they're tipping or tippet wings, or they've got tippet underwings. Same process. We'll set those over there. Might as well do the jungle cock also, because this does have a jungle cock that sticks out of the back of it. So the larger pair will have a jungle cock feather sticking through it. That requires a longer one. But how long is the question? I think that's about right. Anywhere in here we can tie in, so there's room for adjustment there as far as length. So we need to find a mate for this one. So then we just take that one and we just look along until we find one that we like that matches. I like this one here. Length on it looks good. So we'll put those together. Well, you get the idea. That's how they'll all be tied together eventually. Step by step, one at a time onto the hook. It should look something close to this. And then we'll have a Kingfisher cheek as a chatterer sub. That's about the wing, and that's how I go about selecting everything for it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. You know I'll always get to them. Other than that, I will see you guys over at the vise, and we'll start putting this together. Alright, so sorry about the noise, but we've got fans going and a couple of machines, and it's kind of a warm day, so I'm going to kind of have to put up with the background noise a bit. Alright, so we've got our hook in the vise. I've got some Veevus 12-0 in white, and we'll wrap on right here where the hook starts to thicken out a little bit. Trim off the tail. And we want to go ahead and get the silk gut on. And here's that. I've been soaking this for about an hour or so, hour and a half. And we're going to loop it up underneath the hook shank and bend it pretty evenly. And you want the bend to be about 1 millimeter or 2 off of the tip of the hook. Good rule of thumb, if you can fit your bobbin in through there, or your bodkin in through there, you're good to go. So now we're going to take it from this point and wrap forward, kind of touching turns. Doesn't have to be exact, but... And what that does is that kind of gently closes this gap a little bit, making that loop a little tighter. And then we'll start working our way back. Alright, once we got to this point, which is 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the way of your gut being tied in, take a razor blade or a pair of scissors. I prefer a razor blade because you can get a flatter cut, and just kind of shave it right along the hook shank, giving it a little bit of a taper. And then we can tie the rest of it in, which should taper out rather nicely, and it does. And I'm going to go back to the front and just give it a real good wrap, and just make sure that it's even all the way around. The majority of this is going to be dubbing anyway. So, okay. Now we can go ahead and get our tinsel, which for this is silver twist. Bear with me, I apparently can't find it. There we go. So I've got the silver twist, and we'll take that and tie this in right where that gut ends, right on that transition there. We'll tie that in, and we'll wrap that back on the underside of the hook shank. Getting back to that gutter, or barb valley as I like to call it. Kind of what it is. Okay, like that. And we're going to do just 3 turns of that. That should suffice. And tie that off. And then when we tie it off, we're going to tie it right back up the hook shank again, alongside the tinsel that you tied in, or the end of that you tied in. And we'll do that till we're right about even with where he tied it in at the gut. And then we'll go back to about the hook point, which is where we'll start our tag, which is yellow silk. I'm using this is mulberry silk. I found it on Etsy. I'll leave the link in the description for it below. I also have these elastic thread keepers that are around these. I'll leave a link to where I get these as well. They're inexpensive. They come like this, and they just stretch, and then you just cut them to fit. Alright, so I've got the mulberry silk here. Just make sure all this is nice and flat. And then I'm going to double this. So we'll wrap it around the thread, tie it in, and we can skip our thread ahead and get it out of the way. And then I'll just wrap this here, go back to the tinsel. And then when you get to the tinsel, just turn around and come back. And when you get back to where you tied in, you can go ahead another couple of wraps, and then that way you'll be tying your next material in back here, so that'll leave a nice smooth transition from your floss to the butt. Clip away the excess. And then we'll back up and quick burnish. Alright, now where you want to be next, that's about right. You want your thread to be about 1 millimeter behind the hook point. That way when you line your butt up and you tie on your butt will end at the tip of the hook. And the other thing I'm noticing here is there's not enough of a thread base right here where I'm going to tie in my tail. So I'm going to build up a little bit of a base here. Otherwise, when I go to tie in my tail, the tail's going to pop up on me. I don't want it to pop up. I want it to have a nice smooth transition off of the hook shank. And by having a nice solid base to tie it in, a nice flat spot right here, that'll ensure that. I have a couple of tails that I want to take a look at. This is one. There are a few that I had already chosen from other flies, but didn't work out for them. Maybe it'll work out for this one. Definitely too small. I like this one. And I'll have to cut into a nice topping. And if I start it there, I'm only going to get part of that. Let me look for another tail that's actually more whole, which would be smaller than this, and we can tie it in more back here. Alright, so when we're looking for our tail, and we're looking at our golden pheasant crests, you know, there's a couple of things we could do. I've seen a lot of people that like to take the longer toppings and then just tie in a piece of that. Kind of, just as an example, taking a longer topping like this and tying it in down here, which can leave, you know, a nice long fibers back here. But I prefer to do it so that way the feather itself, the full length of it, you're tying in at kind of the base, anywhere in this whiter area on the feather. So kind of sort through and look for that shorter you notice a lot of these, you know, you'll see this with a lot of golden pheasant. They've got twists or they've got curves to them. Oftentimes at that point, if you find one you like that's like that though, that's a little long. A nice one that's a little long. And a good topping though. But you might wind up having to soak one of these. If you find one you like, you may have to soak it for a little bit and shape it on a piece of glass. Yeah, it's not a very good one. Let's see. I'm not really seeing one in here. This is why when people message me and are looking for advice on tails and toppings, it's really important that, I think it is anyways, that you have multiple heads and crests. Having a good selection, and you're not always going to find what you're looking for on one crest. So here's another one, and this one has some shorter crests here that actually seem somewhat nice, but they're not quite the shape that I'm looking for this fly. So I would have to soak one of them, or you don't even really have to soak them for very long. You can kind of dunk them in the water and then lay them out on the glass and shape them. Closer. I want to get right down in here. And this process is definitely not a quick process sometimes. Yeah, I like that one. That's a good one. Now if you want to thicken that up and you want to have more fibers in there, you can always just add a second tail. Double it up. And the two of them together will give you a nice fuller tail. So you don't have to go and use, you know, one of your toppings. Let's see. I can make that work. Alright. And I might not even have to soak them. But yes, having multiple heads available is a good thing. I make a point to... I might kind of get a little carried away, but when I do make an order from, like, say, Feathers MC, I make a point to buy an extra head. Just so I've always got spares to work with. Alright. So now we'll take these, and to prep them, we'll get the little feather out of there first. And you'll see they've got a little bit of a curve to them. So if we were to tie them straight flat on the hook shank, they might curve a little bit. What you can do is just use your fingernail. Kind of like with breaking the back on it. And then you can just shape how you'd like it to lay. Let's see. This one's a little bit more curved. That little feather. So to tie in, I think about there is good. Trim up to there. Grab our flat nose pliers. And you're going to flatten out that tie-in point. Right where you're going to lay the other one on top of it, and you want to make sure that's nice and flat. That'll make sure that they tie in easier. Otherwise they'll want to roll on each other, and that can kind of create chaos. I think that's going to sit rather nicely. I'm going to just get some wax on there though. Oh no, okay. Wax will just make sure it doesn't slip around a little bit. lay the other one just inside that one. Just like that. So again, we'll trim right up the side of the stem here. And we want this one to be just a little bit shorter than the last one, than the first one. Opening the frame there, I apologize if I'm not. I feel the view on this camera is very small. Okay. And I'll take the pliers and flatten this out. I can get that one. Okay. Trim away the stem. The veiling on the tail is Indian crow. In this case, I'm just going to use a substitute. Just trying to pick one out of the package here. These are they're dyed ringneck pheasant. A white ring around the neck. He takes these and then he takes those and then dyes them to look similar to Indian crow. I just want to find one that looks good for this pattern. I'm not going to see much of this black anyhow. This one will look good. And strip away a little bit flat, a little more. Make it. Alright, so I was going to flatten that with pliers. Let's see how that kind of broke on me. I'm going to try to do it with my tweezers. And you see how the feather keeps rolling anytime I try to squeeze it. I thought I had it. Okay, okay. Finally. Okay, so we're getting that rack is semi-flat. And now dropping it. I'll wax my thread again since I'm working with a very small amount of feather here. So hold that right up over there and tie it in. Still not quite sitting straight. All right. All right, now for the butt, which is black curl. We'll grab the ostrich plume here. Alright, as always, we'll strip the base right here. Only like the first millimeter or two. Even just a millimeter. And you want it oriented with the fuzzy side facing up. If you look very closely at it, there's a stem, there's that quill. That should be vertical facing down, and the fuzzy side should be on the top. And tie that in. You want to tie it in so that way none of the fibers are being tied in. That's kind of important, otherwise you'll wind up with some sticking out as over the tag as you wrap it, and it's almost impossible to get rid of. So now that you've tied it in like this, you'll pull it towards you, then forward, and then straight up, and that'll have it so that way the quill is now facing forward and the fuzzy side is now facing back. And you can then begin to wrap that, touching turns. 3, 4, 5. This is a larger fly, so I'm okay with that. Looks good. And then we'll tie that off. Okay. The ribs are silver lace and silver tinsel. So I take that to be flat silver tinsel and silver lace. Now I don't have lace, but I do have twist, and I rather like twist. Sometimes I'll twist it up into like even a rope, but I'll use the twist instead of the lace. All right, so the twist that I'm using is Uni-French. Now, I'm debating on twisting some up into rope so that it's a little bit thicker, just for the heck of it. No, I'll leave it. I'm not going to mess with it. Try to stick to the pattern. Okay, so there's the twist. And then the flat silver tinsel I'm going to use is Lagarden. Sorry, I got a little mixed up on the spool there. There we go. The flat end as well. And we're going to tie these back just a little bit more so that way they're both starting kind of on the quartering away side of the fly, so when it's viewed you don't see the starting point of it. Obviously on a fishing fly that won't matter, but this is a display fly, so you gotta be careful with this kind of tinsel as well. It can cut your thread. some to make a little kink in it there. There we go. Alright, so for the first wrap of tinsel, it's going to be orange silk floss, and then it's going to go into a dubbed body. So for the first turn, we'll use this as our guide. Pardon me. I suppose that could work. Give or take. Okay, so we need orange floss starting from about here. Now again, I'm using the that same mulberry silk floss. I kind of like it. I want to do a comparison video with it at some point soon, and actually put it right up against Japanese silk. I want to see the comparison side by side. But so far I do enjoy this silk. A little more than that. Okay. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to double it, so I'm going to wrap it around the thread, and then we'll just make sure the other end they're even. That's about even. Okay. Let's take this and we'll lay it down side by side. I might be cutting it close on this one. I don't think I've got enough silk here. So could do. Tie it in as a single string instead. And we'll see how far I get. See if the coverage is the same. Not close. Let's see here, I'm not sure I'm happy with this at all. No, I'm not. I'm not happy. I can see the turns of soap too much. So I'll unwrap it. Going to use some orange ovale silk floss. I want to see the difference. I really didn't like the way that looked. Okay. I've wrapped in some different silk. You see, after burnishing it out, I can't see individual wraps like I was able to on the other one. Perhaps the mulberry silk is more of a tag floss or fishing fly floss. I don't know, I've used it in several, sorry about that. I've used it on several flies before and liked it. I just didn't like it the way it laid down there. Maybe it was my technique this time. But this looks nice. I like this. So the hackle in this is a Kakabondu dyed orange. Now I don't have that. I actually don't even have any badger dyed orange. So best I can do is like a orange, either a neck hackle. Alright, so I don't have what the recipe calls for, which is the Kakabondu dyed orange. I did find some grizzly dyed orange, but they're very small. I don't think that's going to work. So, shy of taking some badger and dyeing that, which I just don't have the time to do right now, or I just can't. I do have this nice orange saddle, so I'm going to use this. And we're going to tie this in right where the second tinsel wrap crosses. We'll take our tinsel. I like that. So I'm going to tie it in right there. Perfect. I'll get right up by the tip here and just trim away these fibers. I'll just tie that right in. Alright, so the rest of the body is orange seal's fur, or dark orange seal's fur, and black seal's fur. I don't have dark orange, I do have orange, so that's what I'll be using. You can use a little bit of wax on your thread, just get a little bit tacky. It's described in the book by Kelson that this is a 50-50 orange and black. So that meaning that the space from the end of the floss to the front. It's half orange, half black. I think that's pretty good for the orange. Keep in mind when they say 50-50 also, you're not going all the way to the tip. You need to leave some room for, you know, your throat and things like that. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to bring up the flat tinsel first. Let's get this out of the way. Okay, now we can bring up the twist. This is where I like to use the rotary function a bit, that way I can make sure that this tinsel stays all in line with how I want it. Scissors. Eesh. Alright, now I'm just backing off on that flat so I can tie it all in together. Okay, like that. Now we can take our hackle and tuck that in right behind that tinsel. And then we'll just strip away a couple of fibers here right by the tie off. And then we can tie those off together. Trim away the rest of the hackle. Trim away the rest of the tinsel. And then go ahead and make a little bit of a base for your throat to sit on. Make sure the rest of that's tied in good. And then you can go through and just pick out the seals for a bit. You don't have to. Doesn't say really in the directions to, but I think it gives a little bit of body to it. And okay, the hackle for the throat, it's just described as light blue. I have several shades of light blue, so I'm going to kind of hold these up and show you guys my thought process along the way. I don't know if that'll be long enough. I've got these light blue saddle hackles here, but I think they're all a bit too short. I get some of it, but not the kind of throat that I'm looking for this. So that bag is out. This is the other light blue that I have, which is a completely different light blue. And this is neck hackle. Which doesn't matter. I mean, we don't need a taper at this point. We just need... Let's see. It's back here. Kind of in the back of the pack. There's some that are a little lighter than the rest. Ones like these that the dye just didn't quite take, which is fine because it might actually provide what I need. Let's see. How long will these fibers be? I think I'm going to give it a go. We'll see what it turns out looking like. So we'll strip a little bit up here. Right where the hackle's starting to be long enough to match the orange hackle here. That's a good way to get a good throat on there, is measure your hackle. Make sure your hackle fibers match what's coming off of the body. The body hackle at its very longest point should be your throat hackle at its shortest point. And then we'll fold that front piece down, tie that down a little bit. That'll lock the stem into place. And then just fold it and plumber it back as we wrap. Okay, now we can kind of fold that back a bit and see how that's going to look. Oh, that's not terrible. Okay, right here at the front then, what you want to do next is you want to have a nice flat spot to start tying in your tippets. Oh, sorry, before your tippets you got to tie in your jungle cock, which if you remember we selected earlier, this pair here. And we're going to tie these in so they reach the tail, but just reach the tail. Yeah, I think that's going to work good. So our tie-in point is right in here. Might have to remove a little extra fluff from the bottom here. That's okay. And we'll take our flat nose pliers and flatten those out as well. Once you've got them flat, make sure you've got some wax on your thread. Waxing on your thread, especially at this point, is going to be very critical to helping your tippets and the rest of the wing set nicely on there. The wax will prevent things from sliding and rolling and moving around a bit. So I'm going to tie these in, and then I'm going to have to hit pause for a moment. Just like your tippets, you can do a little Z-bend. Just kind of use your thumb to make a little bend in there so they want to kind of sit down a little bit more. And then once you get your tippets on, you can get them to sit a little bit better as well. Alright, I'm going to go and see what all the ruckus is about, and I will see you guys back here shortly.